This episode of The Blind Chick will be covering adult content and material. Listener discretion is strongly advised. Please take a moment to pause this episode in case little ears are present. This is a two-part series, so don't forget to come back next week to hear the rest of this amazing interview. Thank you for listening to The Blind Chick. You're listening to The Blind Chick, an Aftersight original podcast. We're telling you stories about strength, overcoming hurdles, and living experiences. We see who you really are. Blindness can be an adventure. Are you ready for the journey of a lifetime? We are.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to The Blind Chick. That's Moses Street.
And that is Penn Street. As you know, the Blind Chick.
Wah, wah, wah. Oh my gosh. Oh, Mose. It's been a crazy beginning to the new year already. You know, we made it through all the holidays. Even New Year's wasn't too crazy for us, but Valentine's Day's coming up, so plenty of notice.
Yeah,
plenty of notice out there.
I'm sweating that one already. Well, today, speaking of sweating, I am sweating today because we have Raquel Perez on, and she's a sex therapist.
Amongst other things.
Amongst other things. And it's like, I'm nervous. You remember the last time we went to therapy,
I know.
The therapist took your side and said, get rid of that bum.
Exactly. You do have a pencil and paper, right? You are going to take notes.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Just making sure. Well, Raquel, welcome to The Blind Chick.
Thank you, Penn. It's so nice to be here.
Yeah, it's good to see you, Raquel. It's Moses.
Where are you joining us from today?
I am in Lakewood, Colorado.
Oh, okay. So not too far away. So
wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So what do you like to do during the winter?
Wait for the summer.
Oh. Good answer.
Yeah.
I always like to say that the winter and I are not friends, which is interesting because I was born and raised in Colorado.
Oh, wow.
And I choose to continue to live here. So I guess it just comes with the territory.
Yes.
Yeah.
You'd think I'd be used to it by now, but I'm not.
Yeah. Well, and you also have bragging rights to be an actual
native.
Real native. Yeah. So.
That's true. There are very few of us here now, which is interesting.
I know. So many transplants. And even like with me, I've been here, since I was like 3, but I don't count. Like I'm still... Because my little sister was actually born here and she likes to remind me of that. So it is different.
Yeah.
Well, Raquel, before we jump into what you're doing now, I'd like to find out kind of what brought you to this career. I know you have RP and it runs in your family, which is, fairly normal. But tell us a little bit about you. Did you start losing your vision when you were a kid, or was it later in life?
Yeah, thank you for asking. So, as you said, I have RP, which is retinitis pigmentosa, and it is, there are different forms of it, but in my family, we're born with it. And so our parents know pretty early on because it's you just know those things, I guess, when you're a parent. And ever since the beginning, I would say that my vision has never been what other people's vision has been. And ours goes, I guess the best way to describe it is kind of like eating away at your vision. It starts with night or dark, being pretty low vision in dark areas, and the peripheral vision. And then that peripheral vision, it kind of like goes widening, the blind spot, I guess, if you will, goes widening and widening and widening and widening until it completely takes all of the vision away. Typically in my family, what I've seen is we have vision till about, I would say maybe 50 or 60. Again, it goes like kind of diminishing over time. But I would say that I've noticed maybe by 60, 65, maybe it's completely gone. The vision is completely gone.
Yeah, we talk a lot about blindness and low vision being a spectrum, and that's really fairly new to sighted people. They think, oh, you're either blind or you're sighted. They don't really understand. It varies so much, but even within a diagnosis, so like RP, I have a friend who's Trisha. I'm not going to say how old you are, but because I know you're a fan of the podcast. But
we just went to her 18th birthday party. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, right. But she really didn't notice it until her 40s, and now she still has a little bit left, but they're expecting the rest of it to go by the next decade. But it's different with everybody. Was it helpful having family members that kind of made this normal in your family?
Really good question, Penn. And this is something that I am continuing to navigate through, and I'm figuring out how to navigate through this, because although it runs in our family, I feel like I don't feel like this was the messaging that I received, at least. And unfortunately have kind of like perpetuated it until very recently, is almost like this shame of it.
No.
And almost trying to navigate the world as though we have full vision. And it was something that my grandmother did her entire life, and it's something that I learned, and I think a lot of us who have RP learned to do. And I think it's so that's a very good question, because that wasn't my experience. And so it made it, I would say, much more challenging in many ways to navigate the world in that way. And also, I guess I would add that because we have a good amount of vision for, 20s and 30s, it poses an even bigger challenge. I had somebody that I was working with, a client that I was working with, that said that she had something else, some other ailment. But she said, I have this ailment, and because I live in this body that presents as though it doesn't have that, it makes it challenging to navigate the world, because then people around me expect me to have the same vision as they do, because there's no way that they would know unless I say it. And it's very difficult to, I guess, walk into a room and say it every time.
Right. That's interesting, because I use either a white cane or a guide dog. And obviously when I have the white cane, people are like, yep, she's blind. Unless you're like in Telluride or in a mountain thing, they just think it's a really awesome trekking pole. But and you have a new technique that they want to learn. But when I have my guide dog, I would say 9 out of 10 times people think that I'm training the dog. And so, it's sort of that cliche of, you don't look blind, even though nobody can actually answer the question of what it means to look blind.
Penn doesn't have any of the cliche mannerisms. So she gets away.
But even with that, I don't even necessarily think that's fair either.
Yeah.
But yeah, this was a topic that it just fascinates me about how people look at people who are blind or low vision. Because it's different. I have a lot of friends who are in wheelchairs, and they say it's very cut and clear. Like, you're in a wheelchair, you obviously, they can label you much easier. But people who are, and even people who are deaf, I have friends that are deaf, and even that is a huge spectrum. And so, and with them, unless they have like a noticeable cochlear implant or their hearing aids are, showing that that's even, you don't look deaf, I guess is what they would say.
Or the accent.
So did you go, so since it didn't hit you until later in life, do you mind me asking, what is your vision now?
So the last time that I went to the eye doctor, so I'm still able to drive during the day.
Okay.
It's minimal that I do it now just because, again, as I'm now 42 years old, I'll be 43 next year. So now I'm noticing, I guess maybe a more dramatic difference from when I was younger. And it's something that I've noticed, I guess, year after year almost. I've like trained myself to say like, oh, I maybe used to be able to navigate this space, or maybe if this dim lit room, I would be able to navigate it a little bit better a year ago or 2 years ago. And so that's my vision. In dark areas, it's pretty. I need some assistance navigating through a dim lit room. And even during the day, really, there are lots and lots of things that are just fall outside of my scope of view. Even though it looks like it should be, because maybe the person is standing like right in front of me, they just happen to be in that peripheral spot that I can't see.
Right. Yeah. So what brought you to your career? Because and I have several friends that are blind or low vision that are in different kinds of their, the role you're in, but. And even me, when I was, in high school, I was thinking about, oh, that's a career that's very interesting to me, and I feel like that's something that I would be good at, and I did not pursue it to your level, but it's always been fascinating to me.
Yeah.
Thank you for asking. So, I guess it's kind of a long story, but I'm going to make it as condensed and
That's what we're here for. That's what we're here for.
It's okay. We got 4 hours to kill. So.
Right. So actually, I went back to school. So I was a very, very young mother. I had 3 children by the time I was 21. And so I went back to school when I was in my early 20s, maybe 23 or 24. And being a single mom of 3, that was absolutely challenging. But at that time, I wanted to be a midwife because the midwife that had delivered my babies was just so amazing. So in order to be a midwife, you have to be a nurse with a bachelor's degree first. As hard as I tried, I just could not compete with other people who had a 4.0. I just couldn't get a 4.0 with everything that I was doing. So I was denied for nursing school 3 different times, completely devastated, didn't know what I was going to do. But given what I had done up until that point was a lot of biology, a lot of chemistry, so I decided I was like, I'm not going to leave here without a degree.
Right.
So I have to have a degree in something, even if it's not nursing. So then I pursued a biology degree, and I minored in chemistry, and then I became a health educator for family planning at Denver Health, where I worked as a medical assistant before that. So I worked there for 16 and a half years.
Oh my goodness.
About 8 of them were as a health educator. When I became a health educator for family planning, I was working with adolescents and adults when it came to sex, but it was much more geared toward like the medical model. So like birth control and what are you doing for that? However, I started to notice that there were, particularly with the women that I was working with, there were so many stories that were coming in that I wanted to dive more into some of the intricacies that they were talking about. But of course, I didn't have the like credentials or the ability to do that. And that's what sparked within me an interest to do to go back to school to become a therapist. And on the flip side of that, now that we're talking about vision, I thought like, how perfect is this? I can continue to work even as my vision deteriorates. Like that's not going to stop me from being able to continue to do this thing that I think I'm going to be really good at and that I love. And so with all of that, I went back to school and I got my master's in counseling. And that was, I actually, 3 years ago. So I haven't been out of school for that long. So yeah, that's.
Well, how's it going so far? Like, are you happy with your choice?
I am incredibly happy. I absolutely love what I am doing. This has been shortly after I left, I also knew I wanted to have a private practice. As soon as I went back to school, I went in knowing I had done agency work at Denver Health for 16 and a half years. I knew I wanted to break away and have my own thing. And so with all of that, I started a private practice pretty much as soon as I graduated from my master's program. And this has been something that has challenged me more than I ever thought. But the challenges have been wonderful. I would say the growth has been incredible.
Oh, wow.
That's exciting.
I was just really interested when your name popped up and I read about you because over the last couple of years, nationwide, there has been some pretty big cases against some pretty large organizations for sexual abuse with students and things like that in the blind and low vision world. And it just breaks my heart. And what has really come out of it is that a lot of young people don't have the privilege of kind of looking at other people and other couples and kind of modeling, well, this is what's right or this is what's wrong. And even parents of blind children tend not to teach their children about sex because a blind child's never going to have sex, right? No blind teenager ever has sex. It's like, and so it was, what has come out of this, unfortunately, it takes something huge like this to sort of create change. But it was amazing to me, the transition of going from victim to creating these systems and processes to educate blind youth and students about sex. And I was kind of like blown away because I was like, wait a minute, this was not a thing before. Like it took this to get to where we are today. And I would be really curious about maybe your thoughts about why for so many years, decades, that blind children, especially teenagers, weren't taught about sex and intimacy and what that really means as when they're going into adulthood.
Mm-hmm. That's a great question. And I think that generally speaking, we have such a problem talking about sex. Mm-hmm. And so it isn't surprising that when it comes to an atypical population, it's even less so because like you were saying, Penn, a blind person is never going to have sex, right? Like that's not ever going to happen. What? I got super, and it's a different atypical, right? But I got into a show on Netflix called Love on the Spectrum. Similarly, right?
Yes.
It's if you're on the spectrum, you're never going to want to date anyone. You're never going to want to fall in love. What's that? It's just, it's so silly when we think about it.
Right.
But it's not surprising given that culturally there are almost no spaces where we talk about sex openly. And so I would say that no matter who I'm working with and what their story is, it's always the same. there's no space for me to talk about sex. I don't know what's normal, what's not normal. Is this normal? Is it not normal? I'm told how much I should have it, how often I should have it, what it should look like, what it shouldn't look like. And if it's not happening in that way, it's not the way it's supposed to happen. So it just doesn't surprise me that, like I said, with atypical populations, it's even to a greater degree, I guess.
So what do you think the answer is? How can we change this?
I think normalizing these conversations, it's interesting. It's so many times when you're sitting in a room, especially if there are children or babies, we think that we're supposed to like protect them from everything that has to do with sex, which is so not true, right? If we were teaching everybody about their bodies and what's appropriate and what's inappropriate, and the fact that, yeah, it does feel good. And when you do find certain areas, no matter how old you are, and usually that happens very young, very, very young, but parents are so ashamed. The first automatic response is, no, don't do that. You're not supposed to do that. Why are you doing that? That's bad. So then the messaging becomes, oh, something that feels really great, it's bad and I'm not supposed to do that. Instead of saying like, oh, you found your penis. Oh, you found your clit, that does. It feels great, doesn't it? The most appropriate thing to do is to do that in private when you're by yourself and no one else should be touching, right? Like taking these moments to really explain things and teach people about the reality of it. And the reality is that it feels good. And the reality is that, yes, it should be in private, right? Like teaching everybody about these things.
Well, see there, Penn, we did one thing right raising the two daughters is when they lost their virginity before marriage, we went out and celebrated.
Yeah, that's great because then it normalizes the conversation.
Yeah.
Which is something that was completely non-existent in my family. And that was for religious reasons. And that's why I ended up having 3 kids by the time I was 21, right? So there are so many, so many things that come with that, with not knowing. And as you were saying, Penn, if we were to talk to our children like this, very openly and candidly about sex, much fewer cases, at least in my opinion, of rape and molestation would happen because those children would know. Right. Oh, this isn't supposed to be happening this way.
Exactly. Yeah. In like Moses' point, he was exaggerating, but we did raise our girls that, your body is your body. And, that if something feels good, that's great. But if it doesn't feel good, that it's okay that it doesn't feel good, that kind of thing. And I was one of those parents that all of my daughter's friends, I was the first one to find out when their friends were experimenting because they felt comfortable talking to me because I did not judge, But I was also the first one they turned to when they were being traumatized. And I was the adult that made the call, right? That made sure that stopped. And I taught full contact self-defense classes in Boulder. And it shocked me how many women would come through the class. And part of that journey was telling their story. And it was that they didn't know what was okay and what was not okay. And that it was okay to say no. And it was okay to say yes. And I love how you talk about this starts young. It's not just teenagers, and also what you even mentioned, how old they are. I work a lot with seniors and I heard a statistic that there's more, it's a kind of a crude way of saying it, but there's more sex going on in retirement communities than most, 20, 30s and 40s households. And yeah, right. And it's like, but people don't talk about that. They don't, it's like, God, I don't know what the answer is, but when this whole thing came up in the blind community a few years ago, it just rocked my world because a lot of these people I knew on both sides, I knew some of the perpetrators. I knew the victims. And it was just really devastated me and a lot of people in the community. And we've all been like, okay, what can we do to change this? And they've come up with some solutions, but I think they have a long way to go because like you said, this starts really, really. So they're kind of focusing on that high school, college age, community in the blind world, we need to go much further than that, it sounds like.
I believe so. There's a really great book. I forget the author right now, but it's called Come As You Are. Oh. And she talks a lot about that, a lot about different things, but how, again, this starts very young, and allowing that conversation to happen. But of course, that means that we adults around those children have to let go of our own shame and guilt when it comes to sex.